How does one measure the will of heaven? Can cracks on a turtle shell truly predict the outcome of a war? This is not superstition. This is the world's earliest documented system of strategic forecasting. In the dim light of a temple, the fate of a dynasty was being decided not by swords, but by symbols. The Shang Dynasty, though mighty in force, had lost the virtue of heaven. Its rulers' excesses echoed across the plains, turning allies into enemies. But to challenge a centuries-old empire required more than courage. It demanded a blueprint for victory, crafted in the quiet before the storm. Here emerged the first master of strategic planning in Chinese history, Zhang Zia. He saw in those turtle shell cracks not omens, but opportunities. He calculated terrain, timing, morale, and alliance. Every variable that would later be enshrined in Sun Tzu's teaching. He who knows when he can fight and when he cannot will be victorious. This is where the art of Miao Xuan was born, the sacred calculation that aligns human action with cosmic order. How did a ritual in a temple set in motion the fall of an empire and the rise of a golden age? This is the story of the Battle of Muya. Miao Xuan. Beneath the war banners, Zhang Zia conducted a revolution in strategic thought. He built not just battle plans, but a system to measure victory before the first arrow was fired. What later generations would call the 7 calculations of temple strategy. First, the Tao, the moral alignment. He proved how the Shang king's cruelty had severed the bond between ruler and people, while King Wu's virtue attracted dozens of states to his cause. Then, heaven's timing. He chose the early spring, when roads were firm but farmlands lay fallow, ensuring supply lines and minimizing civilian impact. Next, earthly advantage. His scouts had mapped every marsh and mountain pass, turning the terrain itself into a weapon against the larger Shang army. But his genius shone brightest in evaluating commanders. He identified the Shang generals' greed and arrogance, proposing targeted feints to trigger their recklessness. This was the birth of systematic warfare. Every variable quantified, every contingency prepared. In that war room, Zhang Zia demonstrated what Sun Tzu would later canonize. Victory belongs to those who calculate abundantly before deploying. The turtle shells had cracked, but the true oracle spoke through this rigorous calculus. A lesson for all strategists. Heaven helps those who help themselves with perfect preparation. When dawn broke at Mui, the calculations of the temple became reality with terrifying precision. The Zhou chariots did not need to break the Shang lines, because Zhang Zia's strategy had already broken them from within. The Shang army, though 10 times larger, was a giant with clay feet. Their frontline forces, enslaved soldiers long oppressed by the Shang nobility, turned their spears at the first battle cry. This was not luck. This was the culmination of Zhang Zia's 7th calculation. Whose army has united morale? The Zhou troops advanced like a surgical blade, striking precisely where the strategic forecast had indicated. They met minimal resistance because the real victory had been won weeks earlier, in the temple, in the alliance halls, in the hearts of the discontented. In less than a single morning, a 6th-century-old dynasty crumbled, not through brute force, but through a victory that was already 90% complete before the first arrow was launched. This was the ultimate demonstration of Sun Tzu's core principle. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. The shells had cracked, the calculations had converged, and history turned its page. All because one man understood that true strategy happens not on the battlefield, but in the minds that shape the battle before it begins. The true test of strategy is not how an empire falls, but what rises in its place. In the ashes of Shang, Zhou rulers faced their ultimate challenge, transforming military victory into enduring governance. Their solution would shape Chinese civilization for 3,000 years. Zhang Zia's genius now shifted from warfare to statecraft. He designed the Fengjian system, a network of interdependent states bound by ritual and kinship. Like the turtle shell cracks that predicted victory, this political architecture balanced power through precise calculations of territory and loyalty. But the most revolutionary innovation was the mandate of heaven. the concept that rulers must govern with virtue to retain legitimacy. This was the institutionalization of the very moral calculus that had doomed the Shang. For the first time in history, political power was explicitly tied to ethical performance. The bronze vessels cast in this era tell the story. Inscriptions shift from recording battles to documenting laws, from glorifying kings to admonishing successors. This was the birth of China's enduring vision of governance as sacred responsibility. The shells had cracked, the battle was won, but the greatest strategy unfolded in building a system where future conflicts would be resolved not on battlefields, but in temples of governance. 3,000 years after the turtle shells cracked at the Zhou Temple, humanity still seeks answers to the same fundamental question: how can we navigate uncertainty with wisdom? The legacy of Miao Xuan did not end with the fall of Shang. It evolved into the very bedrock of Eastern strategic thought. When Zhuge Liang studied celestial patterns at Wuzhang Plains, he was practicing Zhang Zia's art of reading patterns in chaos. When modern meteorologists predict typhoon paths, they employ the same principle of calculating variables that determine the Battle of Muye. From quantum computing to pandemic modeling, we are still engaged in the eternal dance of mapping probabilities against possibilities. This is why Sun Tzu enshrined calculation as the first step in all warfare. Not because he believed in fate, but because he understood that the universe operates through discernible patterns, whether etched on oracle bones or encoded in algorithms. The true heritage of Miao Xuan is the conviction that every outcome, from stock market fluctuations to climate change, follows a logic that can be partially unveiled through rigorous analysis. The shells may be museum pieces now, but the imperative to calculate, to weigh, to measure, to foresee, remains humanity's most powerful weapon against the tyranny of chance. From the smoke of temple offerings to the glow of quantum screens, the journey of Miao Xuan continues. What began as cracks on turtle shells has become humanity's never-ending quest to peer through the veil of uncertainty, to make choices illuminated by wisdom rather than blinded by impulse. We now stand where Zhang Zia stood, facing complex systems whose outcomes matter profoundly. Climate models replacing star charts, pandemic simulations substituting for battlefield maneuvers, but the essential question remains unchanged. How do we act wisely when knowledge is incomplete? This is the final lesson of Miao Xuan. Strategy is not about predicting the future with certainty, but about reducing the domain of the unpredictable. It teaches us that every great decision, whether launching a business or healing a planet, requires honoring both the calculable and the incalculable, the data and the virtue. As new challenges emerge from the fog of time, the ancient strategist's whisper still echoes. The highest victory is not over enemies, but over the chaos within ourselves and our world. Miao Xuan. Miao Xuan.